So I'm Guy Cookson, co-founder of Respond, native advertising platform. We work with top-tier publishers and we help them sell advertising at a premium by creating native advertising placements for every device. So this is really a story about US tech giants from Google to Facebook to LinkedIn and Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and how they've built an audience and then systematically taken the advertising money that once went to traditional media companies. And it's not a pretty story. It's also a bit of a mystery. Newspaper and magazine publishers, along with TV, dominated advertising for decades. And you could argue that no one was better placed to dominate digital advertising. They had the content, they had the products, they had the audience, and they had the relationships with brands and agencies stretching back decades. And they were on a roll. This is advertising spend in the US with newspapers from 1950 to 2010, adjusted for inflation. And as you can see, the best ever year was 2010 it was 2000 at over $60 billion. So they were on a roll. And then this happened. That same year, Google launched AdWords, a product to match ads against search results, which of course was a genius move. There's no better sign of intent than when somebody's searching for something. So click-through rates and conversions were incredibly high. But it wasn't just what they did, it was also the way they did it. Now here's a page from that year in 2000. And instead of displaying big, bold graphical ads on the search results page, they chose a format that followed the look and feel of the surrounding content. The ads are clearly labeled, they have the same typeface, same type color, and they're positioned in the line of sight. 5 years later, after AdWords had launched in 2005, Marissa Mayer said there will never be intrusive banner ads on Google. And bar the odd experiment here and there, they've pretty much stuck with that format. By the way, I don't know what a graphical doodad is, but I'm glad there aren't any on Google. 13 years on, the search results page look pretty much the same as they did back in 2000. And although Google are now into cars and phones, glasses, and probably spaceships, 96% of their revenue still comes from advertising. So they're very much a media company. They're in exactly the same game as The Guardian or the New York Times or the Telegraph or the Sun. They're all in the advertising game. But if you contrast the way that Google looks with the way that most newspaper websites look, there couldn't be a greater difference, really. Of course, that's not actually a newspaper site, that's Times Square. This is a newspaper site, which actually is fairly similar in terms of their approach to advertising. Now, if we look back at that graph again and bring it up to date by adding the extra 13 years from that peak in 2000, and you can see it's a disaster movie. Newspapers are now making the same amount of money, adjusted for inflation, as they were in the 1950s. And it's not just Google. There is other stuff going on, obviously. But as this graph shows, newspapers' loss has been very much Google's gain. And to the point where Google now generates more revenue than all American newspapers combined and all American magazines combined in terms of advertising. And of course, it's not just Google that built a great product, built a huge audience, and then set about monetizing it with ads. These guys, Facebook, have done pretty much exactly the same thing. And I think it's interesting that they followed the same approach. They didn't follow what the traditional media companies have done online, but they've adopted pretty simple ads that follow the form and function of the site design, which makes for a much less intrusive experience. They don't use pop-ups, they don't use sliding ads, they don't in any way interrupt the experience. The ads can be placed in stream where people actually focus rather than in the margins where people don't. Twitter too, 140 million active users. Again, they've not gone about monetizing those people with banner ads and MPU ads and ads outside of where people focus. They've again gone for in-stream ads. I think a sponsored tweet is about as native as you can get. It's an ad that looks and feels like it's part of the experience. And again, they are labeled, but other than that, they look exactly like standard tweets. So they're very much integrated into it. It's a seamless experience. LinkedIn, Another big American tech giant, tens of millions a month for users, and again, taking a very different approach to traditional media companies online. This is an example of one of their ads, again, in content, styled to look like the surrounding design. Now, you might say that these examples aren't a fair comparison. They are mainly kind of direct response type campaigns. They don't feature much branding. And newspapers obviously aim to go for the brand money. But then look at a site like Tumblr, acquired in May this year for staggering $1.1 billion by Yahoo. Yahoo, of course, is now run by Marissa Mayer, who we met earlier, was at Google, made the famous statement about not running crappy banner ads in 2005. And what kind of ads does Tumblr run? Of course, in-stream ads that look and feel like they're part of the content. So there's a theme emerging here. And you get the picture, if you excuse the pun. Instagram, 150 million users, bought by Facebook for $1 billion last year. They've just started running ads, and again, they've taken that same approach, nothing like IAB formats. They've gone for the in-stream ads that are in keeping with the design of the site. So basically, hugely successful US tech companies build hugely popular products and monetize them with non-standard ad formats that are native to the site design. And newspaper sites, for the most part, don't do that. Now, leaving aside the issue of why newspaper sites haven't fixed things over the last 13 years, back in 2000, before AdWords, sponsored tweets and Instagram, could anyone have known that this is the way that the industry would go? And could anybody have known that these are the kinds of ads that would work? And I think the answer is yes, because if we look outside of the media industry, native advertising, as you may call it, has existed forever, really. I mean, the IOC could sell advertising to anybody. Every brand in the world wants to be associated with the magic of the Olympics. They could sell to every software drink, every sportswear company, every electronics firm, every watch brand. They've done the same thing as these companies. They built an audience with the event and they want to monetize it with advertising, but they keep it super exclusive. There are just a few mutually exclusive categories. There's no trackside advertising. I think trackside ads are probably the same as banner ads. They don't do those at the Olympics. Instead, the ads and the sponsors are kind of woven into the experience. So you get Visa cash points and McDonald's restaurants, and you get things like this Amiga timer, which I think is the best form of advertising they could possibly get. It's part of the experience of the Olympics, and it's a two-way street. It makes the timer almost look more accurate because it's got Amiga on it, and Amiga benefit from the association with the Olympics too. So everybody wins with this kind of relationship. Advertisers get exclusive ownership of the category without the distractions of their competitors. Spectators get an uncluttered environment to enjoy the event, and the IOC in this case get truckloads of cash. FIFA have done the same thing in football, very tightly controlled supply, and again everyone wins. Adidas here on the official match ball. I don't think the Lawn Tennis Association is often mentioned at digital conferences. They're probably not known for innovation, but they understand the power of controlling supply, maintaining a brilliant user experience and making sure that brands fit in with their surroundings so they don't devalue their product, which is the tournament. And here you can see what I would say again is a native ad. It's a Rolex placement on the scoreboard. It fits in perfectly with the environment. It's totally in keeping with the event. And again, the value goes both ways. Rolex benefits from association with a prestigious event like Wimbledon, and Wimbledon get to benefit from association with a premium brand like Rolex. When we started Respond, we started working with top-tier publishers. We wanted to create a better way for them to monetize their content without using these standard ads that can devalue the environment. So rather than look at what everyone else was doing, where it tends to be a case of trying to fill every white space with an ad, we looked at what these US tech companies were doing, and we also looked at what people were doing in the sports sector. And we came up with 5 basic rules. And the first is obvious, really, that ads ought to be where people focus. Of course, ads often aren't where people focus. They're often out in the margins or above the menu or, under the fold, below the fold. So that was the first thing. And we know where people focus because we've been doing eye tracking studies since the late 90s. We know people focus pretty much entirely on that column of content. So that's where the ads need to be if they're going to have an impact. And of course on mobile there are no margins. So that's the only place they can be. Again, I think this is really ought to be obvious. Why would you make ads that don't look like they belong to the page? In the past, perhaps technically it was a little bit more challenging, but today it's pretty simple to deliver an ad into the page and style it so it looks like it's part of the page. And again, relevancy. Again, it ought to go without saying. I don't know how many times I've seen, weight loss ads or really inappropriate ads, really, for the context. I wouldn't want to see an ad like that at Wimbledon or when I'm watching the Olympics. I definitely don't want to see it when I'm reading a business article. So it's the same concept, relevancy. And again, making sure that ads work across every device. It ought to go without saying. The growth of mobile, it's been pretty fast, but it's not been that fast. I mean, when we built our products back in 2010, I think the iPhone 3G was the most popular phone. So mobile had already exploded. And it's interesting, when you book a campaign with Twitter or Facebook, they don't give you the choice. They just assume that you've got to run across all platforms. Just got to get a glass of water. And finally, the fifth kind of rule that we came up with is that ads ought to create a beautiful experience when you click or choose to tap them. That's not what happens when you click on most ads. You get taken away from the environment that you're in. It's a very disruptive, interruptive environment. Our technology creates the campaign in-page, so it's a much more integrated experience. And these 5 things work. We found that when people see ads, they're much more likely to, of course, recall them, which leads to higher brand recall, which leads to higher purchase intent, without a standard banner in sight. I think things are getting better. We are starting to see more ads that are native, that follow the form and function of the site, and that are placed where people focus on the page. Outbrain is a good example of this. You will have probably seen at the end of articles you see related links. It's a form of advertising, but it's very native to the experience. And you see this on CNN and Telegraph. BuzzFeed famously are experimenting with new forms of advertising, campaigns that are almost indistinguishable from the content. This one's sponsored by Mini. It's the 14 of the most beautiful roads in the world. The Atlantic has sponsored content. They did a misstep, I think, with Scientology that was quite notorious, but they've corrected course, and this campaign is with IBM. Again, it works across all platforms. It's not a banner ad. It's not an MPU. It's far richer than that. We're working with people like New Statesman on delivering sponsored headers, where the brand gets benefit from association with the brand, with the publisher's brand, which is important. It's something that's often overlooked in advertising. A lot of advertising is very tone deaf to its environment. And of course, working across every page. And just today I saw a really encouraging stat, which is that eMarketer expects sponsorship ad spending to grow by 24% this year across premium publishers. So premium publishers are turning away from automatic standardized ads and moving towards more special custom placements that place a value on the publisher's brand. So the point is that media owners won't kill King Kong, but there is an opportunity to learn from the US tech giants and the sporting franchises as well, in terms of what really works, in terms of extracting value without compromising usability. Ads that follow the form and function of the site design, creating a seamless browsing experience for the users, the audience, spectators, and a highly valuable and effective way to capture attention for advertisers. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the croaky throat. I don't know if we're doing questions, but if you have any, I'll be here for the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks.